Alors c'est pour cela que j'ai demandé à diriger, à modérer cette session qui est aussi importante que le partage d'infrastructures en français. Vous savez, le partage d'infrastructures est un mécanisme qui existait depuis que les télécoms ont vu le jour. C'est grâce au partage d'infrastructures aujourd'hui qu'un abonné de Orange ou bien qu'un abonné de Vodafone Ghana arrive à appeler un abonné de Tigo. C'est bien grâce au partage d'infrastructures qu'un abonné se trouvant au Ghana arrive à appeler son collègue aux États-Unis en Angleterre, parce qu'au bout du rouleau, il y a une interconnexion. Et une interconnexion, c'est une liaison qui lie deux opérateurs se situant dans un même pays. C'est une liaison réseau qui permet de relier deux opérateurs se trouvant dans des pays différents. Donc tout à fait, comme vous le voyez, l'interconnexion de réseau constitue un des mécanismes de partage d'infrastructures qui existent depuis la nuit des temps. Mais aujourd'hui, nous allons parler de l'avenir du partage d'infrastructures. Nous allons parler de la nécessité et l'importance de partager les infrastructures si on veut rendre les services de télécommunications futurs accessibles à tous. On a parlé ce matin de l'Internet des objets. On a parlé de l'Internet de small things this morning. Si on n'arrive pas à partager les infrastructures, comment vous pensez nous pouvons arriver à fournir les services à tous les citoyens qui les dirigent? Comment nous parviendrons à interconnecter les bouteilles d'eau dans nos réfrigérateurs? Comment nous parviendrons à interconnecter nos ampoules qui sont dans nos maisons? Comment nous parviendrons enfin à suivre nos enfants qui vont à l'école, etc., etc. C'est pour dire que aujourd'hui, plus que jamais, le partage d'infrastructures constitue en tout cas l'avenir de l'accessibilité et l'accessibilité aux services de télécommunications de demain. Et je m'en veux pour preuve le développement de la 5G en Europe, où de manière volontaire, certains pays ont choisi, n'est-ce pas, de partager les infrastructures, sans quoi il serait difficile aux opérateurs de réaliser le réseau qui puisse satisfaire tout le monde. Mesdames et messieurs, je m'appelle El Hadj Maman Laminou, comme il l'a dit. Je viens de l'Artao. L'Artao, c'est l'organisation de régulateurs de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, forte de 15 membres, et j'ai l'honneur de modérer cette session. J'ai à ma gauche Monsieur Kakou, qui n'est plus à présenter puisqu'il vient de modérer une session. Donc, je vais faire économie avec votre permission de la présentation de M. Kakou. Je voudrais juste signaler que la MBSI en télécommunications électroniques obtenue en 2001 au Cuba, et il a plus d'une dizaine d'expériences dans les télécommunications et spécialisé dans les services universels. Il a un master thématique obtenu en 2004 à l'Université de Cuba aussi. À ma droite, j'ai Mohamed Zil, François Van Zil. François Van Zil est un homme d'affaires international qui a plus de 28 ans d'expérience dirigeant et gérant les sociétés de télécommunications dans le domaine de l'énergie, dans le domaine donc, de logement, de construction, etc. Et il a géré plusieurs projets et a bâti sa carrière dans le développement d'infrastructures à travers l'Afrique. Avant de joindre le secteur de télécommunications, François a passé 15 ans dans l'industrie chimique et où il a occupé plusieurs postes de responsabilité au niveau supérieur. Il est ingénieur et il a un diplôme MBA de Halle Business School, University d'Angleterre, et en gestion de projet, et un diplôme de gestion de projet et marketing de l'Université de Pretoria en Afrique du Sud. Il est actuellement le président directeur général de ATC, la plus grande société justement qui fournit un système de partage d'infrastructures, notamment le pylône au Ghana. Sans plus tarder, donc, je vais inviter M. François Van Zil à présenter son... Merci, monsieur. Je vous demande... Ok. Okay, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Apologies, I don't understand or don't speak French, although my name is Francois. It's complicated, specifically if you're traveling in Africa. Let me just see how this works quickly. Okay, about 8 years ago, topic I'm talking about today is infrastructure sharing, opportunities and challenges. About 8 years ago, I was in Kenya in a telecommunications event, and we were asked to speak about the same topic, or I was on a panel. Although the infrastructure sharing opportunities and challenges were the title, or the topic, the title was actually sleeping with the enemy. So I don't know if any of the operators were here, but everybody was fighting against those days infrastructure sharing. So as I said, it's not about the enemy anymore, it's now about cost savings. So just a quick introduction and an overview. We'll do a quick introduction on telecommunications, on the telco model, a very slight overview of the market drivers, some of the sharing and how infrastructure sharing works in the business model, the different tower owners, and then touch lightly on passive and active sharing and classification. It's quite a sensitive topic at the moment. The benefits of passive infrastructure sharing to the operators and the community at large, and then market opportunities, challenges, and some conclusion. So in the interest of time, they've asked me to speed up a bit. So I will skip one or two of the slides because, interesting enough, some of it has been covered this morning or during the sessions. So I'm sure that you'll recognize some of the information that's on the board. The transformation of the telecoms infrastructure ecosystem began in the United States in the mid-1990s, where independent telcos started acquiring passive infrastructure from the operators. The independent telco model promotes infrastructure sharing and an open access commercial basis, on an open access commercial basis. The MNO divestment strategies have been partly driven by the competitive telecom sector or environment and the need for an external funding to further invest in their networks. In other words, to monetize the infrastructure that they had, which is on their balance sheet, to use the funds to invest into their networks. Worldwide, there's an estimate of approximately 3.4 million telecom towers out there, and of which 65 has now been shared or shared infrastructure. And if I talk about 65%, I talk about investable infrastructure, privately invested through towercos. Obviously, there's operators that also share their infrastructure. Towercos provide operators with a specialized value-added cost-sharing infrastructure solution, allowing them to focus then on their core business or the network. I'm going to not spend too much time on this. The only reason why this slide is in there, I don't think you can do a telecommunications presentation today's life if you don't have some sort of stats up there. So everybody has spoken about the growth. This is a slide from the Ericsson paper. This is the way they foresee it, 50 exabytes mobile traffic in 2021. I'm sure there's enough data and enough stats around that this is a phenomenal industry, and data will explode and drive everybody in this room and anybody outside of this room. If you look at the infrastructure sharing market, we've basically split it up into 4 segments or 4 markets. This is the informal slide, which internally is a towerco or tower model slide. Basically, you have your emerging markets, which is initially the first time when mobile became to life. Then developing markets, developed markets, and then the last developed markets. So in emerging markets, coverage was king. None of the operators wanted to share, and if they had the coverage, they were there before their competitor. So no sharing was considered there. As the markets developed, and it was important to start expanding, some selective passive infrastructure sharing started to occur. Then in the developed markets, where we basically are now, if you look at Africa, and because I see Africa as a developing market, I don't see it as an emerging market, full passive active sharing is on the go, where you have active, you have passive companies, towercos, all the infrastructure is being shared and co-shared. And then in developed markets, where you look at Europe, where passive and selective active sharing is starting to take place. So for instance, in Sweden, active sharing is in place and so forth. Perhaps, I heard earlier they spoke about roaming. Perhaps the easiest active sharing is roaming, so at the moment. Have a look at the different tower co-owners. There's basically three, we've defined it in three types of tower co-owners, people that own infrastructure. It's the independent tower cos, which may or may not have an operator as a partner. Typically, these companies are American Towers or ATC, IHS, which is huge in Nigeria, same with ATC as well in Nigeria now, and then Helios and Eaton, all of these companies are presented or represented in Ghana. Then you have mobile network tower cos. These guys are the tower cos that manage and lease their own assets through wholly owned subsidiaries. So obviously they believe they can manage and run the infrastructure independently, and it's run like a subsidiary. And then last but not least, you have the mobile network operator who do not share. There are still those operators out there that do not want to share their infrastructure at all. And there's a lot of reasons for it, but possibly one of the biggest reasons is that the towers that they have or the infrastructure they have possibly only serves one operator or one tenant. So tower cos won't be interested in it because, you know, we look at tenancy, we look at co-location. That's how we add value to our company. And a lot of these structures would be built purely to take one infrastructure or one operator. So it's very challenging for the regulator with those type of companies in the market because, you know, they can't allow, I can't go onto that infrastructure if it's a competitor, and I don't want to buy that infrastructure because I have to upgrade it. Touching on the passive infrastructure or passive and active sharing classification. This is an interesting topic. I don't know how many of people in the room here have started talking about active infrastructure sharing. It has become a latest discussion to see where the market is going, how the market will benefit. I think the best way to describe active or to classify or describe active sharing is a bit like describing a mosquito in a nudist colony. They know exactly what to do, but they don't know where to start. I think it's the only way to describe it at the moment. Say, it's a bit like a mosquito in a nudist colony. They know exactly what to do, but they don't know where to start. Basically, active and passive infrastructure sharing, to just split it up, you have passive infrastructure sharing, which is non-electronic equipment, and then you have active infrastructure sharing, which is electronic equipment. And then you have in the network active infrastructure side, you can split it up further between the RAN or the radio access network infrastructure, and then you have the core network infrastructure. So those are the two active infrastructure or the active classifications. And then on the left side, you've got the passive, which is your compound, your tower, your electrics, and your power side, and the whole compound lease side of the business. RAN infrastructure is antennas and the microwaves, so essentially sharing an antenna and not getting close to the core of the business or the spectrum of the switching. And I think the most important part to remember to understand about active infrastructure sharing is that it's really between the operator and the regulator, because the deeper you get into sharing and sharing infrastructure, the really more complex and technical it is to split the cost structures, whose signal frequencies, spectrum auctions, etc. So it's really, really a deep, complicated information. Where it has happened, apparently, or where it does happen, these negotiations are done before they enter the market. So for instance, if you're looking at roaming, these agreements would have been made with the regulator before they enter the market. It doesn't happen after they've entered the market. And the same goes with sharing of the deep core or the deep business. So quick look at the benefits of passive infrastructure sharing. It's a reduction of capital expenditure for operators and operational costs. Quick adoption and deployment of new technology on existing infrastructure. I can just give you an example there. If you look at how successful MTN rolled out their 4G network, you know, that we're talking about adoption of new net. They won the license late last year, and you know, within 4 months they were able to roll out and commercialize not even a month ago. So typically there's a good example. It protects the city skyline. It meets the environmental requirements. This is something that the regulator is interested in the consumer, making sure that the skyline is not populated with too many structures, and they're looking at reducing it and to benefit the whole city. Rapid deployment, another benefit is rapid deployment of network rollout on existing infrastructure, as well as the reduction of barriers to entry. This is where you would have typical in Ghana, you would have examples of the LTE fixed broadband guys that entered the market a couple of years ago. The infrastructure was there. They had to basically just work their radio plan around it and get going on it. So infrastructure makes that available. That's one of the biggest benefits. It promotes, and I think this has been covered quite nicely in the previous presentations, it promotes a more sustainable business case for network rollout services to rural and underserved communities. I do believe that topic will still be long for discussion, and I've got another slide on that as well. And of course, for operator, the biggest thing, it minimizes the exposure to the energy and the power supply challenges. So in the part where it was part of their problems and their challenges, they now have SLAs in place with companies like myself, and I have to meet it or beat it. Otherwise, I pay penalties. So it's a huge benefit to the operator for that involvement. Generally, market share opportunities for passive infrastructure, highlighted 5 market opportunities: mature networks, growing telecoms industry, underdeveloped regions or rural areas, new entrants building scale, and then permitting policies. So basically, in mature networks, which you have mostly these days in some places, the operator will focus on his quality of service, new technology, adding new technology layers, and the capacity rather than coverage. When they need backfill or they need a situation where capacity is becoming an issue, if you have infrastructure sharing companies out there, you can just utilize some of those areas to cover for the capacity as the consumer picks up your services. Continually in the growing telecoms market, subscriber growth drives network expansion. Obviously, this is where the infrastructure companies can come in to roll out that infrastructure for them. And then low usage of areas generally lead to unprofitable investments for operators, so shared infrastructure can introduce cost savings, allowing viable network expansion to these areas. And I can't recall who the previous gentleman was that came up here, but I think he described the relationship between the NCA and the operator and the consumer quite well. And I think that's a very important point that he made there. New entrants building scale, we covered that previously. Basically, new guys coming onto the market and want to make sure that they can actually hit the market quickly and no delays. Permitting policies, this is an interesting one. It is an opportunity as well as a threat. From a towerco's perspective, it's an opportunity because the policies is so difficult and the permit and the environment prevent the delay or build of new towers. As such, they are stimulating co-location, which is the tendency driver which I want or the towerco or the infrastructure company wants. So therefore, your radio planners would have to look and plan around these towers or these structures because, rather than building new ones, because it's going to be very difficult for them to approve or to get these policies passed. So although it's an opportunity, it's a threat on the next slide. So if you look at the market challenges for infrastructure sharing, this is really infrastructure, and you've got to look at this slide from the angle that this is where companies enter markets. So the biggest challenge is the funding for companies. All their funding is done in US dollar, obviously, and they bring their money in. In Ghana, as a matter of fact, there's been over $400 million invested in buying towers and infrastructure. And, the company that I represent came here in 2011, and the rate of exchange was 1.6. So today you've got 3.9 or 3.8. So it's eroded a lot of our business plan and obviously eats up your cash there. Then regulatory, there obviously is always challenges with regulatory. They might change. The regulators could lead to tower decommissioning, which could mean to revenue loss. In Ghana, it's a hot topic at the moment, but I've got a lot of faith in the ability of the regulator who's dealing with it extremely professional. I think they're starting to understand, they're listening to all stakeholders and players, and they're starting to understand what they can do, what they cannot do. But ultimately, I think it's a good exercise. I think it will show up to people who are supposed to be in the industry, so we're very supportive of them and we're working with them on that one. But if we have to decommission a structure, obviously I lose revenue, and the consumer possibly loses connection. Energy, Ghana is famous, and for the guests here, there's a word in Ghana called dumso. All right, so you can hear the giggle around the table. This is on off or off on. I'm not quite sure. I can always get confused. But Ghana has had a huge challenges last year with power and energy. So for us to invest into an environment and the energy levels drop, last year, 2015, the grid availability was roughly 75%, or 8 hours of a day you didn't have power. This year they have done a remarkable job, and it's back to 82%. So now you have about 4 hours don't have power in the main center. So it's difficult. Simon spoke about the generators, the cost of running it. We have SLAs signed with our customers. It's a challenging environment if you haven't planned for it and allowed for it. We're now doing a lot of investment into that to make sure that should that tower or that power be off, the batteries would kick in and make sure that it can handle the time for that battery. Also, when you invest, you obviously try and do a due diligence, so you buy all these structures. So you could buy a structure which is not competent and capable of actually carrying 2 or 3 tenants. For a towerco company, it's very important because it's like a block of flats. You want tenants in the flat. So your investment only pays off if you can get 2 to 3 people on that structure or operators on that structure. If you get structures which is not strong enough or they don't have the space, you have a problem with your return on your investment. And then the building of the infrastructure, mainly here in urban areas where you have high buildings, high-rise buildings, lack of data, lack of information. You don't know what the structural strength or concrete strength of that building might be, and you want to erect a 9 or a 10-meter structure on top of it. It is a bit of a problem. It's not the NCA building, by the way, I'm referring to. We've got a structure there which is brand new. How are we doing for time? Am I going fast enough for you there, Ron? All right, so now get to the challenges again. This is not passive infrastructure. This is really operational challenges that you have as an infrastructure company. So on the permitting, you have a number of approvals that have to go through, and this is not just Ghana. This is everywhere virtually, as far as I know, in Africa certainly. It's approximately 9 months to 12 months in order to get an approval and to get a permit or a build permit done. So when your radio planner or when your marketing guy goes out and your head of your commercials, these guys want the market and they want the people to get onto their networks, and then he wants to start up by tomorrow morning. The permits take a very long time to get this done. For us, the biggest challenge really is the upgrades, the word called upgrades there. We have structures and we would like to upgrade that structure because we are specialists and we have structural engineers and we understand industry, we understand steel, we understand the integrity of a steel structure, and we might want to beef that structure up to make sure that that structure can maybe handle or take on more antennas. And then you have to go through the whole permitting processes to explain why you want to break down the existing structure and re-erect exactly the same structure there. These are delays which huge challenges for co-location companies. Real estate, well, it's always a challenge. You have title deeds, you have the different stools in Ghana, and the renewal cost and the community demands. When one enters the market, you always enter with some legacy issues. Somebody had promised the local community something, and when you want to go and renew that lease or that site, then somebody's promised him a borehole or a school or a couple of laptops, and it's quite challenging to try and overcome that in order to renew your license, your leases. It's a huge cost funding business because we don't pay those deeds on a month-to-month basis. We need to pay maybe a landlord 5 years ahead. So it's quite a lot of money outlay you have to pay up front to secure and to make sure that that lease and that site and that compound is open so that your network operators can get there if they have any problems or downtime, to minimize downtime. High operational cost, this is also one of our biggest challenges. I mean, this is just eating away. Everybody has it. I know the operators are under huge pressure with this as well. But, it's really brought about by the poor or lack of grid power, the currency devaluation, high country inflation, and increase in permitting fees. These are all costs that you try and budget for and try and cover for, but just comes to you at all angles. Very difficult. Currency devaluation is all about materials. Anything you buy, anything you import isn't US dollar based. So if a fan belt of a generator breaks, I've got to bring that in US dollar. The high country inflation, all my services are in local, and we use local companies, but of course the inflation needs to put up prices. We've got an 18.2% inflation rate in Ghana. In 2011, when we arrived here, it was 8%. So huge increases in inflation and huge increases in your cost base. Service levels agreements. If you've got a challenging permit, I've actually addressed it earlier on, but it's really just about the power. We have a service level agreement in place with our customers, and if the power is not available, I have to meet or beat the service level agreement. Well, if I can't meet it with my normal day-to-day running, I have to make sure I have power infrastructure or my power ecosystem on that compound is there, is ready, is available, the batteries are charged, and if the generator fuel is done or completed, there's huge logistics problems to get the generator fuel or the fuel to the generator. And last but not least, site security. It's everywhere a problem. Vandalism, people break into sites. It's a direct correlation with your power. We noticed that when the power is low or the power is down, the energy, you haven't got the grid, we notice that our battery theft just increases considerably. And that's everywhere. It's not just in Ghana, but it's everywhere. People see these batteries, they want these batteries. It's becoming a huge issue. But those are the sort of operational challenges that the infrastructure co-sharing companies are faced with. So in conclusion, I'll just read you. The traditional business model of MNOs are being challenged. Markets have matured and become highly competitive. User behavior patterns have changed, and technology development has created opportunities for everyone to access the internet. And we heard a lot about the Internet of Things this morning as well. So as operators and regulators strategize, change, and rise to meet these challenges, TowerCos will be a key part of the industry's value chain, offering specialized infrastructure products and services. I thank you all. I think I've made up some time there. Are you happy with that? You can go read the presentation. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Francois. Thank you very much, Francois. So before to go to question, let me invite President Kaku to make his presentation.
Thank you, Lamine, for appointing me president. It's just chief executive. Okay, so I can assure you that you would see some convergence in my presentation with that of Francois Van Zyl, but that's not because we colluded. I suppose that confirms that what I'm going to say, as well as what he said, is fact. Okay. All right. Okay. So a quick run through the outline. Quick intro. Prior to or previous to that, I'll just say a word or two about the chamber. Types of IS, and that's not Islamic State, that's infrastructure sharing. The advantages of infrastructure sharing and the challenges and the good practices and the state of play in Ghana, and then I'll promptly conclude. Hopefully it should be shorter than Francois, as will be Yes, okay, all right, thank you. Sorry, that's instructions from Rama. So the Chamber of Telecommunications gets sometimes confused with the regulator. I wish. So the Chamber is the industry association, and our membership comprises, in alphabetical order, Airtel, MTN, Tigo, Vodafone, well, Expresso is in there somewhere, and Vodafone, and in the course of last year, ATC, Helios, and recently Eaton have also joined the chamber, and we've also got at least one fiber company that's knocking on the door seeking membership of the chamber. Essentially, the chamber focuses on the common interest of its members and leaves matters of competition to them to deal with internally. So matters of policy, legislation, and regulation, industry reputation, public communications and advocacy, and then we do research as well. And Derek Laye, who is our research and comms manager, is out there, and he was instrumental in putting this together. So if you like it, he's responsible for it. Any glitches are mine. So I think Francois Van Zyl did this. So just the theoretical framework of what is infrastructure sharing, essentially as a mechanism for reducing your costs, and so you will, while potentially increasing coverage, improving quality of service, lowering the retail costs to your consumers, while at the same time ensuring that the environment does not suffer and you optimize scarce resources. Passive sharing, essentially sharing of the site, physical supporting infrastructure, which does not need active operational coordination among network operators. Active speaks to the sharing of the active network layer, including radio access, the nodes and transmissions, and some of the other details that Francois referred to earlier on. So this would be a typical, okay, I'm not sure where the, is it the, excuse me, is it the key in the center that gives you the pointer? That's it? Okay, there we go. All right, okay. So this would be a typical site sharing model where, you know, different operators share the site, shared compound, but have independent towers, and the equipment cabinet is also completely independent, but, you know, the cost of sharing the site is lowered just by and I suppose also strengthen their hand in negotiating with landowners and so on in terms of acquiring the site and renewing the contracts and the leases with the site owner. The next one, you have a bit more sharing of the towers while maintaining independent equipment and cabinets. Oops. Yeah, the next slide. Okay, thank you very much. So this goes a little deeper, involves the sharing of all access network equipment, including the antenna, mast, and the backhaul equipment. Here we're talking about the network roaming, which is also, of course, a form of infrastructure sharing, whether it's national, international, or between systems. Okay. So there are various commercial models for sharing infrastructure. You can have the joint venture model, or co-location with tower companies, which is the status quo in Ghana now, or fiber companies outsourcing to fiber companies. Public entities, which is primarily state-owned or publicly owned, and then you've got consortiums and and PPPs. I think there are countries such as Gabon, if I'm correct, and a few years ago, Togo was also considering it, where you have independent mobile network operators forming a consortium establishing sort of a special purpose vehicle that owns the infrastructure, and where the network operators become shareholders, but they also clients or customers, and have an independent, management. And if they make money, of course, they pay dividends to the shareholders. And so you've got a sort of church and state between the shareholders and the special purpose vehicle. And it'll be interesting. I'd like to hear, for those of you that are visiting from elsewhere, I'd like to hear if there are, if you have such models in your market, and what the experience is, and when that you would recommend it. So here are some of the advantages of infrastructure sharing. Obviously, cuts down on capex, cuts down on time to market for new entrants, reduces your OPEX as well, minimizes duplication and replication, and then network expansion increase in coverage and network expansion. Reduces your service prices, and then of course the visual impact, the aesthetics that people obviously and justifiably find so offensive, and then ultimately leads to an increase in connectivity and quality of service, which then leads to improved social and economic benefits for the population and for government. But there are some disadvantages or challenges with it. Erosion of competitive differentiation. And so you need a balance, the right balance between competition and cooperation, as sharing could lead to losses in opportunity to compete. Then there are also potential risks to confidentiality, possible leakages of critical business information to the host company. And then finally, decreased investment in infrastructure, where the players in the market hold back and and watch or wait for others to make the initial capex so they can run on their backs. So some good practices on the left, how to ensure that you have a sharing-friendly environment, an environment that encourages or incentivizes infrastructure sharing. And then, of course, on the right, you have the regulatory policies and strategies, innovative regulatory policies and strategies. So there's a need to establish adequate an adequate regulatory environment that favors competition, which is not based just on services, but infrastructure for both incumbent and new operators. And also create incentives to competition and investment, such as regulatory fee exemptions, tax regimes, that incentivizes infrastructure sharing, in order not to limit infrastructure sharing to particular operators or types of services. On the right, you need innovative regulatory policies and strategies. Reasonable terms and conditions. Sharing obligations should not hinder the investments made, and commercial and non-commercial terms should not act as a barrier to sharing arrangements. So this is where the regulator can play a role to ensure that there isn't bullying. And then, of course, transparency is critical to ensure that operators are open with one another. And this is important, interaction with other sectors or other industries, so that we're not just talking about infrastructure sharing within the telecom sector alone, but also with other utilities especially. For example, we say the electricity or energy sector. In Ghana, you've got pylons that are owned by the Electricity Corporation of Ghana, VRA, and so on. While at the same time, we've got problems with fiber cut and so on. What can we do together? Perhaps run overhead fiber with using the infrastructure that already exists and belongs to the utility company, or the sharing of underground ducts, for example, between mobile network operators and, say, Electricity Corporation. All of those would inure to the benefit of both industries. Then, of course, dispute resolution is critical, and again, the regulator would be key in ensuring that there's proper mechanisms for dispute resolution. I'm going to skip the legal and regulatory bit. So this is just a couple of points about the state of play right now, and a couple of considerations that internally as an industry we are making. So the first one, active tower sharing, I think Francois just talked about that. Mobile network operators have outsourced their towers to the 3 tower companies, over 5,600 co-locations since December 2015. Actually, I'll say since 2010, when the regulatory regime changed to allow for co-location. Of course, there are always issues with the vertical real estate, as you know, the line of, most operators would want a more advantageous position on the tower. So that's a bit of an issue, but I'm sure that for both operators, the regulator, and for the general public, they prefer the current environment than the status quo prior to 2010. And then the second point about active fiber sharing, okay, run out of time, just conclude. The swap deals, so you have, for example, a telco A providing access to another telco in Tema and Dansoman and vice versa. Currently C Squared, which is a subsidiary of Google, are laying 1,700 kilometers of fiber in the Golden Triangle, and but they are not targeting the final consumer, except if their customer, who is their wholesale customer, network operator, wishes to.
Thank you very much.
Okay, 30 seconds and I'll be done.
To conclude.
Sorry, no, this is important. Okay, so I'll just touch on the top one, active sharing. So right now you've got in the district capitals, we are mandated to have
Sorry,
3G. Yes, I'm concluding on this point.
all right.
All right, thank you. So we've got all mobile network operators are mandated to have 3G in all district capitals, and virtually all of the operators have met this condition by and large. However, there are many of these sites that are not making any money, and everybody's making losses. So there are not some network operators that make as little as 10 cities on a site in a month, believe it or not. And we think that one of the ways to address this is to break up the cluster. Instead of having 4 or 5 or 6 operators in a district capital where none of them is making any money, break it up and have one operator sit in that district capital.
Thank you very much.
Others
We're
move
going to move to questions,
underserved,
President Kaku.
And
Please.
all right, I'll be happy to address your questions and complete my sentence.
Thank you very much. Please switch off. Can you switch off the mic? Ladies and gentlemen, now question, please. Who? He has a presentation. No, I have two. All right. Okay, if I can. Sorry. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. You have the floor, please.
Wow. After they be able to move Kwaku from this side, I think I have to be very fast, if not I'll be moved too. Yeah. So quick one. This is insisting to my time. Yeah, that is different. The Universal Access Fund for Ghana. Okay. The same topic. And after listening to Francois and then Kwaku, I don't think I will do any theoretical framework. They've done all for me, so I'm going to add what they've said, being specific on GIFEC. So I'll be jumping. I don't want you to see this picture. What is this guy doing? He's making the call, and you have to hang it at that particular place. And this is not anywhere. This is North Gonja. This is North Gonja in the northern region, overseas. He's making a call, and that's why he's making it. So we'll talk infrastructure sharing. We want to avoid some of these things. We want the operator to save money so that these things will stop. So that's why this picture is there. So I'll move straight to what GIFEC is doing basically on. It's the same thing now. GIFEC, as of now, we have 38 common telecom facilities for sharing, and a lot of operators are sharing our site. Then, as of now, we have 51 rural telephony sites. Rural telephony site is a small model of the bigger one. And then, let me show you the picture. The rural telephony, the solar-based one here, and then the common telecom facility is the 80-meter tower this side. That can take 2 or 3 operators. But here, it takes 1 or 2 operators alone, and it's a solar-based. Now, I want to talk about the 112. It's an emergency call center internationally accepted for Africa and Europe. Now, we are implementing it now. We have one in Accra, Kumasi, Ho, and Takrady will be ready very soon. But when you talk of sharing, I want to propose that the sharing should make emphasis on the emergency center, emergency number 112. The local roaming that we are talking about. Because if you don't factor, even if you don't do it at all, the regulator should make conscious effort to make the 112 compulsory on every network to be able to roam. When you don't have network, you can now call, because it's 112 emergency number. That's one of the proposals that I wish the regulator would take it along. And some of the things that we are doing, it's not regulatory based. I think some of our board members are here, so I think I have to talk well, if not I may be in trouble. But what is happening is through effort from the board and management, we're able to get a good collaboration with the operators. As of now, one of the operators is building 65 sites, rural telephony sites, just for free, just doing it for GIFEC. Why? Because they said the hindrances that you saw in the presentation of Rankoy and Kwaku, land acquisition, permitting, taxing, delay in what and what. GIFEC, if GIFEC can take that cost, they will build the site for us. And we've taken the cost for the 65 sites, and as I'm talking to you, they're on the field working on the site. At this point, I rest my case. If any question, we'll talk about it. Thank you.
And in time. So, ladies and gentlemen, now we have the floor for question. And then after, I will have a couple of questions to... Please. Yes? 2 questions. Let's start with Madame. Please.
Thank you very much. My name is Sylvia from Tigo. Kwaku, I may be doing your bidding here to complete your last slide. So, taking up from the point Kwaku was emphasizing on the Ghana experience, we've got today Tigo, Vodafone, MTN, Expresso, and Glo within the mobile space. And when we talk about our coverage obligation, most licenses have it to do a nationwide coverage. What we've we've been experiencing in recent times is that in most of these rural areas, and I'll be veering this into the infrastructure sharing conversation. In most of these rural areas, the sites are non-performing. Now, the conversation is, why make all these 5 mobile operators move into areas, collectively make full coverage across the country and have non-performing sites, when you can have, for instance, an understanding between operators that this is how we want to cover and make sure that every area is served properly. So that's one of the agenda we're trying to work through via the chamber. We are happy to say also that the NCA has been supportive, and we hope that that conversation is taken up, to a very good conclusion. The other emphasis I wanted to make is that we can't delink active infrastructure sharing conversation from rural access, sorry, as I've just explained. Because at the end of the day, as operators, when we make those savings, we're able to then cover more rural areas. And if I can indicate that some operators are interested in already having active infrastructure conversations today, and all that is required is a clear regulatory framework that would support that initiative, that's a good indication. And I think NCA has always been a pace setter when it comes to the telecom industry in Africa. So this is one area that we would like to see a lot more support. Very concrete, tangible timelines to saying we've assessed Ghana, we know where our gaps are, and this is the plan to meet up all the loopholes we have in our network coverage. Thank you.
Madam.
Thank you. My name is Victor Tepe from the National Communication Authority. My question is that, is there any trend towards the active infrastructure sharing from the perspective of the mobile operators? That is my first question. And my last question regards what percentage of reduction?
Question.
Pardon?
Repeat it. Can you repeat your question?
Oh, repeat it. What I want to find out that in Ghana currently, is there any trend from the towercos or infrastructure tower companies towards infrastructure sharing, active infrastructure sharing, from their perspective, yes? If there's any trend at all. And my last question is that, since the infrastructure tower sharing began in Ghana, what has been the reduction of OPEX or CAPEX average on the mobile operators?
To anyone? Okay, just gentleman with a white barber.
My name is Kwame Boachi from Ghana Institution of Engineers. Talking of infrastructure sharing, as the industry develops, what you find is that the value addition changes. In fact, typically when this industry starts, people differentiate themselves through the reliability of the infrastructure. But over time, a lot of operators will be quite willing to outsource even the infrastructure so that they concentrate on providing the service. So I think regulatory-wise, we should be keeping that in mind. In fact, in Nigeria, they've started models of the telecommunications system where there can be what they call infrastructure companies. And there are people who can be in the business of just providing the service without necessarily owning the assets, the infrastructure assets. So I think this is something we need to think of. And as a matter of fact, when you get to the point where you are worrying about nobody making money in the districts and so on, the way is not necessarily to have a monopoly. But for example, if you have a provider of the infrastructure and then the service providers can compete over that infrastructure, that way you don't eliminate competition. So these are things that I think we should keep in mind. Thank you.
So can I start with you? Before to move to give floor to maybe I can put some commentary on what Madam asked. I would like to know if in Ghana the national roaming is allowed. If the national roaming is allowed with NCA, I think it cannot be a solution for operators to select zonal, to distribute zone by as per each operators to serve, to develop infrastructure and network in this area, another in another area, another and so and so. And now they can active a national roaming. This means that if you have a SIM card from Vodafone and Vodafone doesn't have infrastructure or doesn't have this site in an area when you are moving to, you can use the one who has infrastructure. This is the way it can work, but this is can work only when national roaming is allowed in Ghana. Thank you, Madam.
I think the question was regarding RAN. Is there any RAN or an active sharing in for TowerCo currently in Ghana? Was that the first question? Are we planning to go to it? Look, it hasn't started. We're not planning in Ghana. I'm talking specific Ghana at all. It's something that is becoming quite topical across the world and across Africa. But we specifically are not involved with any active discussions at the moment. Active will be a discussion which should start with the network operator and the vendor because the equipment is electronic. They certainly are the experts, the vendors and so forth. So we would look at how we would meet the agreements or the arrangements, our commercial terms around that. Or we would move from an active from a passive environment towards an active or a RAN. I personally don't see the TowerCo companies moving to full core. It's not their business. It's never been their business. They remain in their core business, which is passive. They could move towards the RAN, perhaps, but those boundaries would need to be defined.
Second question, reduction in cost.
On the same subject, if my name is Eric, I'm from MTN.
Sorry. We are trying to please wait until we.
Sorry, I got a signal from. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you should ask that to the operators, how much CAPEX and OPEX reductions they've seen. But it's a well-known publicized fact. It's probably in the region of 20 to 30%.
I just wanted to comment on, I think, Mr. Boache's remarks. Is it Mr. Boache from the Institute of Engineers? Yeah, I think the point that Sylvia Usu and Koma from Tigo made was that we have a situation where you've got 4 or 5 operators in a district where nobody is making money, and the model that is being considered for proposal to the regulator and policy maker is that you have one operator in that district on whom the others will roam. Yeah. So instead of 5 entities or 4 entities sitting there and making losses, we're not even looking at making money, but just a more efficient use of resources and deploying those other facilities or infrastructure to unserved areas and other underserved areas. So just the same infrastructure but better spread. Thank you.
Right. Now we have a second serial of questions. Yes, gentlemen.
Okay. My name is Eric from MTN. I manage the sales function. On the active infrastructure sharing, I think somewhere within this confab, we have to also harness the fact that these things are driven by innovation. So what you find is that in most of the dialogue, we are confined to is Tigo sharing with MTN, is MTN sharing with Airtel. But I may be sharing with Rancard. I may be sharing with mobile content. It may be the people who are managing the utility billing project now are called commercial management systems or something of the sort. We have discussions with all those kinds of players, not because those are telcos, but because to be able to get active infrastructure shared, you have to stretch into the adjacent sectors of telecommunication as well. And we might find that we have got fixated with the regulatory space that we had under voice. Under voice, it was very clear that those who carried the voice licenses were the only ones who sat down in discussions like this to share infrastructure. But the market has evolved tremendously. And I think one of the biggest challenges we have currently is that there are some entities now trying to look at sharing within the evolved market with the same lens that we did sharing within the voice market. That doesn't tend to be very feasible. So that's our submission, that there are a lot of players, and the plethora of new entities means that the entire discussion feeds into what the gentleman from Australia mentioned before the break, that there's disruption going on. And under those disruptive circumstances, there's another kind of orientation that works.
Thank you very much for your commentary. Any none? I think we are on time, yeah? 2 minutes to... All right. I would like to ask a question to everybody. Do you think with Internet of Things, Internet of Small Things, 5G generation, do you think that one operator will be able, like what we have today in our countries, to give service to everybody in our country? What do you think? Do you think it will be possible for only one operator and one operator to deploy its one network to serve, to give service, to give access to everybody? It will be possible or not? What I want to know. The answer will be, I don't know if you understand.
But over what period? When? Now? But, over what period?
No, I mean in the future, with Internet of Things, Internet of Small Things, Internet of Things, Internet of Small Things, broadband. Do you think one operator could be able to give services in one country, even if he want to do it? It could be, the answer will be no. Nobody can be able to give services as one operator, like what we have now in our environment. We have Vodafone running its own infrastructure network. We have Tigo, we have Airtel, we have everybody. Because we have only small data and voice. But in the future, we will have big data, we will have Internet of Things, Internet of Small Things, we will have large band, broadband, everything and everything. So I don't think that it will be one operator could be able to give service to everybody. This is my point of view, and I think you will share this point of view with me.
Please, I have someone here who wants to add his voice to.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Well, concerning the machine-to-machine or telemetry, Internet of Things, whatever the current nomenclature would be, clearly I think we as operators as well have come to a certain accommodation that is the first time we are going into space that there is room for everybody. the traditional notion of market share itself has to be redefined when you are talking about surveillance and agriculture monitoring and telemedicine and all these adjacent sectors, like I mentioned, because there are sick people everywhere. All of them need primary health care. If we have to give connectivity to them, we would be, if you like, quote unquote, a bit silly if we consider the market share to be the number of SIMs. Because in reality, you are doing healthcare, and the market share notion under that cannot be SIM cards. So we ourselves have to scale upwards to be able to support medical staff and outreach teams in ways that add value to what they are going to do. And our digital infrastructure offering is not just SIM cards. That's when cloud services coming, that's when transmission services, that's when everything that we can do to be innovative within the budgets that they have make an impact. So indeed, as far as telemetry goes, it really stretches the current definitions that we have, and I think the idea of anybody dominating is completely out of the question.
To thank everybody, maybe to ask you to give us a round of applause before to hand over to the MC.
Can we put our hands together once again for the panel? A number of issues have emerged, and the moderator did a good job trying to keep within time. There is it was brutal. Okay, so there's cocktail right after here.
Downtown. About town. No, they're going to run down. Ocean journey to the west. Hey, Ghana's most beautiful and agro. That is what television is all about. To bring joyful, informed entertainment and informal education to all and sundry.
No wonder we have had GTV, TV3, Metro TV, TV Africa, Crystal TV, UTV, GH1 TV, ETV Ghana, Net2 TV, Top TV, Crystal TV, Basset 1 TV, UTV, Cardinal, Light, and many more. And then even Obonu TV.
I speak for all, I believe. And now you. Now that I know, that you know, that we all know the television broadcast, can you kindly explain the process of digital broadcasting migration?
Simple. It's just the process of transferring analog networks to digital network transmission over a period of time.
Oh, okay. But why is this happening? Is there any benefit?
Fantastic, Nanama. You know something?
The whole world is migrating to digital television for improved quality and spectrum, more programs and services, as well as energy efficiencies.
What you want?
More stations on your television, crystal clear sound and pictures, better reception, and more program information services. And Ghana cannot be left behind. Look, the whole world is migrating and we must protect our broadcasting from interference.
When will all the DTT migration take place in Ghana?
It's been divided into 3 phases. 1, Greater Accra and Ashanti region. 2, Volta region, Northern region, and Upper East and Upper West. And then 3, Eastern, Central, Western, and Bronga half.
Meaning from my house in Beman Camp in Accra, I just have to shoot on my television and digitally migrate to receive more programs with better sound and pictures.
It's not that simple. Look, analog TV sets cannot receive digital television signals directly. Set-top boxes will have to be installed, just like we do with decoder boxes, to enable us watch television signals on our analog TV set that many of us have.
Okay. Koshwe, your TV needs STV. Your TV needs STV.
You see, alternatively, an integrated digital television set, that is IDTV,
could be used to receive digital TV services.
My fiancé has promised to buy me digital TV like his own.
Yeah.
But how will I know it will work?
Beautiful. I thank you in advance. Thank you. On her behalf. However, STBs and IDTVs should conform to Ghana's digital terrestrial transmission receiver standard and should always have a digital Ghana logo affixed to it.
Okay. May I know the difference between my analog TV and a digital TV, if I should buy one?
As I explained earlier, having a set-top box makes all the difference in receiving digital broadcasting signals, and you have to have digital Ghana logo fixed to it.
What is digital terrestrial television? That is DDT. Hey, that's something I'm sure. Oh, sorry. DTT.
In television broadcast, digital signals can only be received by a set that has digital set-up box. Terrestrial means ground-based information transmission. And your set-up box or your IDTV must have the digital Ghana logo affixed to it.
Again, sorry to bother you with my...
Don't worry, I'm at your service.
Oh, okay, that's good. What is set-up box?
A set-top box is that unit that receives the TV signals and changes it, for it to be understood and displayed by your analog TV set. That's all. Go here! Let him go! Go here! Where are you taking the television set?
I'm taking it to my radio and TV repairer to tune in DTT for me to watch a match between Accra Hearts of Oak and Ebusuan Drafts.
It doesn't happen like that. You see, you have to have a set-top box fixed to your TV to be able to receive the digital signals.
And that is that.
Before you can watch.
Thank you. Then I'll take it to my repairer before.
Let him go.
DSTV or FTV or My TV or Multi TV, they receive their distance by satellite transmission. So that is different.
If I have 5 TV sets, can I use one set-top box for all of them?
Oh yes.
But
you will see the same pictures on all of them. If you want to see different pictures on your TV set, then you have to have an STB box for each one of them.
My people, the message is simple and clear. DTT is coming. Starting in Accra and Kumasi. You need an IDTV or a set-top box to connect your TV set. Then you receive it to your UHF antenna.
Who is after you?
Have you seen anybody following you?
No, I'm not seeing. But what is it?
It was my this repairer who told me that chase me into my house and arrest me.
Oh, I see. You know what? All what it means is that if you do not switch over to the DTT, you cannot watch digital terrestrial television in your room. That's all what it means.
DTT is coming.
It's digital.